Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at an absolutely incredible culinary transformation. We're taking a classic, wildly flavorful Thai dish and completely reinventing how it's made using, well, one of the most humble ingredients sitting in your fridge right now. Seriously, get ready to completely rethink your dinner plans. Now, if you've ever craved that tangy, spicy, aromatic explosion that is Thai Larb, but looked in your fridge and realized you're entirely out of minced pork or chicken, you'd probably think you're just out of luck, right? But the solution we're breaking down today is completely unexpected. We're literally replacing the traditional meat with boiled eggs. I know, it sounds almost too simple, maybe even a little surprising. But the result? It's a dish that is deeply rich, intensely flavorful, and honestly, surprisingly satisfying. Let's explore exactly how to pull off this meatless marvel.
Section 1. Perfecting the boiled egg. Science of the shell. Because when the egg is the absolute star of the show, technique is everything.
Before we even think about turning on the stove, ingredient selection is key. Now, I usually assume that the freshest ingredients are always the best, right? But for boiled eggs, you actually want older eggs. Whether you're using chicken or duck eggs, choosing older ones from your carton is the absolute secret to a perfectly clean peel. With fresh eggs, that inner membrane clings stubbornly to the shell, which means you will almost certainly tear and damage that delicate egg white when you're peeling it. So, pro tip, save the fresh ones for frying and grab the older ones for boiling.
Okay, so how do we treat these older eggs once they hit the pot? First, you'll dissolve a spoonful of salt into your boiling water. Start with about 100 milliliters, adding more if you need it to fully submerge the eggs. But here is the ultimate kitchen hack. Once those eggs are submerged, you don't just walk away. You need to stir them, gently and continuously right there in the hot water. Why? Well, this constant, gentle motion literally forces the egg yolk to set perfectly in the dead center of the white. It's a small detail, but it totally elevates the look of the final dish.
Now for the timing. 10 minutes. That is the magic number. That is the exact time required for the ideal boil here. You really don't want a runny, soft boiled yolk that's going to just wash out your dressing, but you also definitely don't want a chalky, overcooked yolk that dries out your mouth. 10 minutes is the absolute sweet spot. The second that timer goes off, boom, immediately plunge them into a cold water bath. This halts the cooking process in its tracks and helps the shell detach. Combined with using older eggs, peeling them is going to be practically effortless.
Once your eggs are beautifully peeled, it's time to cut them. But wait, put down the knife. The source material gives us this fantastic and totally surprising pro tip. Cut the eggs with a thread, not a knife, for perfectly clean wedges. Seriously, slicing a delicate boiled egg with a thick, dull knife blade often just mashes the yolk and drags it all over the white. Using a simple piece of sewing thread to quarter your eggs, it gives you beautifully clean, sharp, professional-looking wedges every single time. It's a total game changer.
Section 2. Prepping the fresh herbs, building the aromatic base. This is where we create that refreshing punch that Larb is so famous for.
For our essential fresh herbs, we're looking at sliced red onion, or shallots, which bring this really sharp, sweet bite. Then grab some spring onion, cilantro, which if you haven't used it has a much deeper, more pungent flavor than regular cilantro, and of course, your standard coriander. When these vibrant herbs eventually hit the dressing, they're going to release incredible aromatic essential oils that perfectly cut right through the richness of that egg yolk. This whole dish is entirely about balance.
Section 3. Crafting the spicy dressing. Sweet, sour, and spicy. This right here is the absolute heart and soul of any larb. So instead of just dumping dry spices into a bowl, we're actually building a savory broth base first. You'll boil about 200 milliliters of water and stir in 2 teaspoons of savory seasoning powder until it's fully dissolved. Then just turn off the heat and let it cool down. Creating this rich, savory broth base is critical. It carries all the other intense spices evenly without watering them down. It's basically the ultimate flavor delivery system for our eggs.
Now, let's talk about how we layer those flavor builders into our cooled broth. You're going to start with a ladle of tangy tamarind juice for that deep, really complex sourness. To round out the sharp edges, throw in half a spoon of white sugar and a teaspoon of MSG for that incredible hit of umami. Next up comes the heat with chili powder. And hey, definitely adjust this to your own tolerance. You'll also want to add a generous spoon or two of toasted rice powder. That's what gives Larb its signature nutty aroma and really helps thicken up the dressing. Finally, a splash of fish sauce. But listen, be incredibly careful here. Because our broth base already contains salty seasoning powder, you really only need half a spoon, maybe a full spoon at most, of fish sauce. If it gets too salty, it is practically impossible to fix, so taste as you go and adjust to find your perfect balance.
Finally, Section 4, the perfect plating, preserving the visual appeal. This is the grand finale, where those delicate ingredients finally meet our bold flavors.
Which brings us to the absolute golden rule of this entire recipe. Pour, don't toss. Seriously, normally with a meat-based larb, you'd aggressively toss the meat in a mixing bowl with the dressing and the herbs to coat everything, right? Well, do not do that here. If you toss these delicate boiled eggs in a mixing bowl, the yolks will just completely dissolve into the liquid, the whites will break apart, and honestly, you'll be left with a mushy, unappetizing mess. Instead, what you want to do is arrange your beautifully thread-cut eggs right on a serving plate. Then fold your fresh herbs into your finished dressing and carefully, deliberately, pour that vibrant, spicy mixture directly over the eggs.
And there you have it, a stunning, flavor-packed boiled egg larb. It's affordable, it's meatless, and it is an absolute game changer for a weeknight dinner. But you know, this brilliant dressing technique doesn't have to stop here. It begs a pretty fascinating question. What other unexpected, everyday ingredients could you transform with this master larb dressing? Just think about the possibilities. Mushrooms, roasted tofu, maybe even some charred vegetables. The techniques we explored today really open up a whole new world of culinary possibilities. Thanks so much for joining me on this explanaire, and I highly encourage you to go test this out in your own kitchen.